Okay, let's just do a run-of-the-mill mental checklist right here. Halloween decor, check. Some little knickknacks here and there to spice up the kooky, eerie season, double check. Vintage films, don't know why I wanted to go with the sci-fi theme for this year, but I blame that all to Alien Romulus. Got problems, but fun flick nonetheless. And the icing on the cake, a vintage shirt to wear for this Halloween season. The only question I have in mind is what flick or flicks to choose for this year, especially for this special occasion of 1980s fantasy. Okay, it's probably a little too early for trick-or-treating this year, but be lucky, I have some Butterfinger skull. What? It's better than a flaming pile of dog poop, but then again, I don't have the Anchor Bay edition. Judy, you're not gonna believe. This doesn't make any sense. Hey, Judy. Did you see anyone leave these two behind? It just appeared by itself? Alright, I trust you. Still though, I already get my 2 cents on this film. What more can I add? I already discussed about the infamous alternate endings, and... Holy crackers. I don't know what prompted them, but they did it. They actually released it! And it's good enough for me to officially revive Dark Disney Month for this Halloween! Unvaulting!
I bid you welcome.
Marvelous introduction.
Back in Season 4, I decided to devote an entire month to Disney movies that are most geared towards the supernatural. And given how the early years were going back then, I blew it. I was bouncing between college, work, and performing in a Halloween amusement park. The episodes came out late, and the whole thing was unraveled by the time the Watch in the Woods episode was being filmed. When creating the original episode, I started to get sick, and you could easily notice in certain parts.
There's always the saying on stage that when actors get hurt, on or off stage, they try to hide that pain once their performance is done, and complain about their injury backstage. Alien designs you could have gone with, you chose a pillar of light? That's just lazy beyond belief!
The fact I didn't get a chance to finish that thing until early spring shows how completely foobar things went back then. And the film choices? What was I thinking? Bride of Boogedy, and that movie where Bill Cosby was the devil? Well, given we're diving into 1980s fantasy-themed movies this season, I'm taking it back. We are going to be looking at a select few Disney films that tried to go as far as they could, but didn't. And granted, some of them turned out to be some fan favorites and ones to play around the Halloween season, So it's going to be interesting to see how well they hold up. And what better way to kick it off than a little revisit to The Watcher in the Woods. At the time, Walt Disney Pictures was in a rough patch. With their famed founder gone, everyone was trying to figure out what to do with the quality of work. Many questioned if they should follow in Walt Disney's footsteps and do the kind of stuff he made. Others wanted change and fast.
And we ourselves had come to a point in our lives where we were kind of wondering, what are we going to do without Walt around? You know, all the films we had done prior to that, Walt was personally involved. This time, Walt had started it, but we were kind of carrying it through without Walt. We actually said, if you doubt yourself, you can't go ahead and do anything. You can't believe in it. So we have to start believing in ourselves.
Enter Ron Miller, who was an executive at the time producing some notable animated projects, and would later be credited as creating the subsidiary Touchstone Pictures as a means to explore more mature ventures that would look a bit awkward under the Disney brand. Even before that, Disney was trying its hand at expanding its quality in movies to ensure it was with the current generation. So it says a lot when Miller was given a pitch from producer Tom Leach to create an adaptation of Florence Engel Rondell's novel A Watcher in the Woods by saying, "This could be our Exorcist." And seeing this was coming from the producer who helped Mary Poppins, would you say no? Brian Clemens, who penned Golden Voyage of Sinbad, was hired to adapt the novel, but executives were concerned over the dark and threatening nature. To lighten it up, English playwright Rosemary Ann Sisson was hired for a rewrite along with the task to give the dialogue a more American touch. Hiring an English writer to make the lines sound more American. Isn't it like trying to get an Italian gelato crew to make Ben & Jerry's ice cream? Anyway, for the directing chair, Ron Miller didn't have to look too far. John Hough was selected for the job considering he worked with Disney before on the first two Witch Mountain movies. How he got the job is more interesting, as Miller caught a screening of Hough's gothic thriller, The Legend of Hell House, to which he felt was a fine ghost thriller. And with Hough dabbing in the horror genre, they felt he would be a good fit for Watcher, and rightfully so given both movies share eerie and similar elements, even right down to sharing some locations that were used prior for Hell House. Once the rewrite was complete, Hough was given the go-ahead, despite some meddling behind the scenes from Ron Miller, who tried to tone the movie down further. Still, if Disney wanted a thriller, they were getting one, but it came with a cost. This is something I'll elaborate on later in the episode, and granted, I know I covered this movie before, but some time has passed, my opinion has kind of sort of changed on this one, and given the bounty of behind-the-scenes information I finally got more access to, it was able to help shape up my viewpoint on this one a little better than prior. It was just a basic linear, let's joke about this kind of thing. And given it was the first time I was able to hear director John Hough's views, opinions, and stories about the film, thanks to this little release right here, it really was quite eye-opening to see exactly what went on behind the scenes during this one. Thankfully, I'm going to avoid repeating any jokes or gags in the last one, so it gives more of a fresh viewpoint. Time has passed, so why not revisit it, but a little proper. The story involves the Curtis family moving into an old manor in rural England overlooked by its caretaker, Miss Elwood. Once the new family moves in, some strange things happen to the daughters Jan and Ellie. Some bizarre occurrences take place between the two, and matters don't help either when Elwood notices Jan looks a bit like her missing child, Karen. And the cherry in the whole affair is that someone, or something, is constantly stalking them. I want to get some of the technicals out of the way firsthand because they are striking. I see why John Hough was hired on, as he's able to replicate a mood that is threatening and sinister. 90% of the movie was filmed on location in London near Pinewood Studios. Even some of the places filmed was used before in Robert Wise's The Haunting, which is kinda neat. While it proved challenging for how to move the camera in tight spaces, it did give a natural feel to the production quality. The trick discovered was to film interior scenes near windows to sell the audience this was not a set. In fact, the only studio set elements were used for the climax and during a scene near a river so that the special effects could be controlled better. The dark atmosphere and how the movie is lit really lends itself to being engaging. The most notable aspect that is easy to point out are the point of view shots. Once in a while, we get these long takes of someone or some creature constantly stalking our characters. These are by far the best aspects, which build upon an uncomfortable tone, as we are curious to know what is looking after this family. From the very opening, we get this feeling as one sees a shot of a car pass by, but then the camera keeps rolling and moving, and you start to realize it's an entity that is observing them. What makes this interesting is you never see this thing until the final 5 minutes of the movie. There's little hints like flashing lights, but that's about it. And a lot of these long takes keep on doing something new and different each time to avoid getting dull and repetitive. It kind of has an Evil Dead feel where the audience sees the creature's viewpoint and it's left to our imagination as to what the thing looks like. Even more distressing is how the entity goes into places that crosses key boundaries, like areas where the leads are visiting, and even their own home by the end. Just the idea of seeing the viewpoint of a strange being by walking into the space of someone's safe haven is enough to make your skin crawl. Watcher in the Woods is a technical marvel for certain, which says something given it leaves me a lot to desire for such lackluster characters. On paper, these are the most generic, one-note characters ever stylized for a suspense thriller like this. With some exceptions. Jan is played by Lynn-Holly Johnson, the older sister who is perplexed by all the weird things that are happening to her. I can't put my finger on it if it's her acting or the way the character is written. When something supernatural takes place, Johnson does a great job selling the moment. She keeps seeing strange images of a girl blindfolded in windows and mirrors, crying out for help and begging for assistance. It's chilling and leads to a lot of effective scenes. The best one for my money is when Jan goes to a carnival and she becomes surrounded by images of the girl in the Hall of Mirrors. According to director John Huff, this is an homage to a similar scene in Orson Welles' Lady from Shanghai. It's effective and really gets under your skin with the slow building music. It's a creepy, eerie feeling when the only reflection you can see is the person begging for help and you don't know what to do. Otherwise, Jan just spends most of the time experiencing weird things, theorizing why they happened, or explaining exactly what took place. I feel like she's there to solve the mystery and nothing else. If they gave her character a little more of a challenge, it could have been interesting. And yet, instead of it being a fish out of water, she fits in a little too easy into the countryside, if I can be a little honest. A little too easy, if I may add. Her character makes friends with a farmer who does dirt bike racing on the side. Most of the focus is on her trying to solve the mystery, but I feel this sacrifices a lot of potential for her character. When something strange happens, I do fear what will become of her.
Dad! Come quick! Dad,
What did you want?
I didn't want you. Merrick did.
My creepy girl. Oh, C is for that feeling of uncertainty for not quite knowing what ethnic group you're from.
Outside of that, I unfortunately don't find a connection or even relate to her at all, given the plot only serves her as the detective chess piece in this match game of mystery.
There's something I've got to do, and if I don't do it, Ellie and I will go on being haunted. Whatever is out there won't tell me what it wants. Stop it! Stop it this minute! Hold of yourself.
Stewardess, please let me handle this.
Calm down now. Get back to your seat. I'll take care of this. Calm down. Calm down. Get a hold of yourself.
Then, there is her sister Ellie, played by Kyle Richards. Fans of John Carpenter's Halloween will recognize her as Lindsay Wallace, one of the children Laurie Strode reluctantly has to watch while she's babysitting someone else. She does okay, but her character falls under the trope of the little sibling that tries to be fun and annoying.
Boy, are you ever jumpy.
Brat!
Even the parents are oddly harsh to her at times, which feels a little off-putting early on.
This will be exactly right for you.
That's what she said about all the wrong ones she showed us yesterday.
I think it was your daughter who did the trick.
Me?
No, dear, not you.
I'm only laughing on the outside. My smile is just skin deep. If you could see inside, I'm really crying. You might join me for a weep.
Much like with Jan, Ellie is only interesting when some strange things happen to her. She keeps writing messages backwards on windows and mirrors.
Now what's that?
The name of the puppy.
I wanted him to stay on at college.
She starts to become a different person at times, and even in one scene, she appears possessed by something. I will give props to Kyle's acting here.
Help Karen very soon!
Karen, darling,
Not Karen.
If you're not Karen, who are you?
tell me what to do, Karen, please.
No! Not Karen!
My creepy girl. Oh, what are you, creepy girl?
I am normally not hard on child acting, but I will say Kyle Richards does a very convincing job when she's taken over by some strange supernatural force. It's not scary, but it is creepy given someone or something is possessing such an innocent little girl to do such things. It's nowhere near as extreme as The Exorcist, but even then, it's still very uncomfortable to watch at times. Also, I should note that the parent characters don't get much screen time. I guess they really wanted to focus on the children, which is understandable. It's their movie. But do you think they would give at least the parents something to do? The father very much disappears midway through the movie, and the mother is just kind of there. That's Carol Baker as the mother, who doesn't do much outside of one moment near the end where they try to escape the house, but to no avail. I know they're not the main focus, but I wish these two were given a bit more time to be fleshed out, and maybe have some kind of placement in the plot. However, what does hold up are the other characters. Bette Davis as Miss Elwood is easily one of the many things I keep coming back to about this movie. I like how in the first half she is seen to be this creepy old caretaker, and you feel there is something sinister about her. Just one look, and you can tell she's seen some haunting stuff. She's quiet into herself for the most part, which gives off an eerie vibe. I think the most frightening scene in the whole movie is when Jan gets stuck in a pond and Elwood runs by with a branch. The music is intense, the quick back and forth almost suggests she's trying to drown her, the air coming out of Jen gets more frequent. This is scary stuff. But one editorial cut later...
She had to push you down to get you loose from the branch. She saved your life.
Then why didn't you just tell her that you were trying to save her? A simple, move bitch, I gotta get her out of here, would have worked just fine. Oh, right, because it's a great false scare for the audience to play with expectations. A very convincing job at that, too. But I do like it when it's revealed Elwood is really disturbed and just unable to move on from her daughter being missing. This is a character isolated from an event she had no control over, and it's interesting to see just how she's affected by this. If anything, I do like how she is still troubled and tries to provide some trust to Jan. As it turns out, Elwood is not the only one affected by the disappearance of her daughter, Karen. It's revealed her and some friends were holding a mock seance to initiate her into their club. However, something goes wrong.
We ask the question, is this person worthy?
Mary! John!
Clearly, this wasn't the work of Taco Bell. Karen's disappearance was an inside job by the Burger King to prevent her from becoming the next Wendy's mascot. Truly, it was this that started the franchise wars. I kid, but I do like how we get to see Karen's friends, even if they are older, and just see how Karen's disappearance really affected them. Mary is a local farmer, played by Francis Kuka, a reclusive aristocrat named John, played by Ian Bannon, and Tom, a local hermit who tries to help injured animals in the woods, played by Tom Colley. These three hold the crime of being far more interesting than our lead characters. Every one of them knows what happened that night, but they're afraid to confront the unknown. Only Jan is a good idea with the only means to recreate what happened on that very night. It doesn't just help overcome their fears, but also helps overcome what in the world is going on with Jan. This is interesting to me given how 6 years later Stephen King would publish It, a story that carries similar themes of adults gathering together to face a devious entity from their childhood that won't leave them alone. Ironic, yet I find it interesting how these three characters are well more defined and interesting, second to Aylwood. The fact that they're riddled and filled with so much guilt, and they don't know how to remedy this situation they've created, or at least are a part of, it does make you want to root for them to get together in the end and try to fix this whole thing. And given they feel a little more developed than Jan, does say a lot, but hey, I can't argue with a movie that was lost in marketing over whether it was aimed for adults or children. In fact, that's kind of an interesting question to bring up. Given the amount of research I did on this movie and the back and forth hearing about who this movie is really aimed for, that does lead me to question one thing. Who was Watch from the Woods really intended for? When it was pitched as Disney's Exorcist, it sounds like something geared for older audiences. Yet most of the movie is not gory or discusses any taboo stuff like religion, nor does it go too hard on the scares. Even some of the trailers and marketing suggest this movie is not made for children, yet these comments by John Huff on an audio commentary confuses me more.
Their market was children and a young audience, so therefore they were caught between how scary and sinister the film could be and how frightening the film could be, especially when in the early version we were about to see the alien appear and how scary that could be. And so this was a constant source of discussion on what level we should pitch the film at. I think they did have trepidations at the time, and subsequently after this film was made, they then set up distribution chain under different banners.
So if older audiences were not the intent, why soften up a movie that was meant to be sinister and dark? If the tone of the movie was supposed to be something akin to, say, Escape to Witch Mountain, fair enough, but that movie had children with magical powers to take the edge off the picture. The fantasy elements in that movie were just enough to get it out of the shadows. Here, the tone of Watcher is creepy and carries through until the end. While nobody dies, there are images and scenes that evoke a mood and tone that feel fitting as a soft-core thriller. If this movie was intended for children, then why give it this pulse-pounding tone? And this was years before stuff like Are You Afraid of the Dark or Goosebumps came on the scene to give a sense of what scary stuff was appropriate for family-friendly audiences. Watcher in the Woods is not scary enough for adults, but the mood and tone is engaging enough. But if they really wanted to make the Watcher in the Woods a horror movie for kids, man, oh man, did this backfire. Let's take a quick nostalgia break, and when we return, we're going to take a look at what makes this movie so infamous. Stay tuned, if you dare.
Ever hear of a gift certificate that turns into a soft drink? Oh, it can happen this Halloween. When you give out McDonald's Halloween gift certificates, kids take them to McDonald's and they get a McDonald's soft drink. Oh, what is that? A book of 20 Halloween gift certificates costs only $1. And can turn into 20 regular soft drinks. It must be the magic of Halloween.
Nobody can do it like McDonald's can.
Nobody.
Trick or treat! Darn, I knew I should have worn a costume. Yo, Bo Peep, what you got in your bag?
Introducing Roy Rogers' Big Chicken Deal. 2 plump and juicy pieces of fried chicken, hot, crisp fries, and a fresh baked biscuit. Roy Rogers' Big Chicken Deal, just $1.99.
Don't you even think about it.
Oh, I do enjoy an evening with a little light entertainment. But when your video heads get dirty, you lose your picture. Not a pretty sight. Happily, this new Polaroid video cassette will help you. It actually cleans your heads as it plays, so dirty heads needn't haunt you. New Polaroid video cassettes. Get the picture?
Oh, boy, there should be some wildlife around here.
Surprise!
The McDonald's Happy Meal, guys.
Yep, a chicken McNuggets.
Regular soft drink.
And regular fries.
And they aren't lying.
What do you put in your McDonald's Halloween pumpkins?
Booty and McBoo, matey. Carrots and McGowan. Golden McPumpkin, partner.
Now you can collect one of 3 different pumpkins with the purchase of every McDonald's Halloween Pumpkin Happy Meal. What you put in them is up to you.
I could end the episode right here and just give my final thoughts, but there's one big thing that completely troubles me about this movie, and that is the ending. I can handle how undercooked some of these characters are and withstand a lot of the build-ups and tension that really do keep you engaged for the most part. But I'm sorry, those final 5 minutes unravel so much. I still recommend seeing this movie, I still do, but even then, I must say, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, because boy, it's a big part of my thoughts on this film. First, some context. Watcher in the Woods was filmed and set to be complete for 1980. However, Disney noted this year would mark the 50th anniversary of Bette Davis' acting career and wanted to coincide with that. It resulted in the movie being rushed to meet the deadline, and here's what cost them. In April of that year, Watcher in the Woods was set up to be screened for critics and members of the press in a special preview screening set up in New York at the Ziegfeld Theater. And for the most part, they were with the movie all the way. According to film journalist Scott Michael Bosco, who would later produce some really cool extras for a lot of DVD and Blu-ray releases, he attended one of these New York preview screenings and noted every audience reaction. It was unlike anything he had ever seen at that time. Well, unless you compare Alien, but that's a whole other ordeal. He noted every jump, every gasp. The audience was just on the edge of their seat. They were with this movie. They were fully engrossed until the final 5 minutes. In the first ending critics saw in 1980, Jan figures out the way to bring back Karen is to recreate the mock seance her friends did years ago. What makes it more of a ticking clock element is how an eclipse took place during their first time, and now they have to perform it at this exact one that's upcoming. I like this idea. It has a mixture of science and nature elements all together, and the fact they must do this once-in-a-lifetime event truly adds risks to it. If they miss it, they're done for and all is lost. Sure enough, they perform it, and midway through, the Watcher finally appears.
He's coming right at us!
Holy crap! Keep in mind, this came out 1 year after the Xenomorph made its debut to the big screen. And to see this follow up that is amazing. The Watcher in this version appears to be some kind of insectoid skeleton creature with skull, wings, and the ability to fire lasers from its eyes. Say what you will, I love this design. If death was coming for me, I wanted to look like that. The skull of a skeleton and vulture wings give a benevolent and sinister appeal. Believe it or not, Henry Selick was one of the Alien designers, and it's pretty unique to note that some of his early craft was here compared to the later stuff he would do. Nightmare Before Christmas, James the Giant Peach, Coraline, you name it. Also, some of the Mercwork stuff in Twice Upon a Time. Can't forget that. And given some of the design work here compared to the stuff he would do later on, it doesn't surprise me at all to see that this was something that he was a part of in the design department. It looks awesome. Anyway, the creature takes Jan, they both disappear, and then moments later they reappear. That's it. Karen is reunited with Elwood, a nice tear-jerking moment. Her old friends are glad to see her back. Jan summarizes what happened to her.
A place where people are changed into negative images.
How she's able to free Karen. And that's about it. Everything would have been fine at that first preview screening if it wasn't for one thing. Critics and audiences started to ask questions. How did Karen exactly get out of where she was, and what did Jan do to save her? Who was the Watcher? What was it? Where did it go? According to Bosco, Lynn-Holly Johnson was in attendance, and she was flooded with tons and tons of these mysterious queries, and all she could do was elaborate on a very unique special effects sequence that was not part of this particular preview, dubbed The Other World. She was midway through describing exactly what they didn't see, and was immediately shooshed by a press agent from Disney. Something was whispered in her ear, and she turned back to the crowd and said something to the extent of, I guess you were not supposed to see that! Ha 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 ha! So, 2 thumbs up?
Frankly, I didn't, speaking only for myself, I didn't understand the ending of this movie. Can you tell me, you walked out of the film, it's all over, where did those blue rays come from? And what was the explanation for that, or anything else in this movie?
All right. I think I know where the blue rays were coming from. I think they're coming from another planet,
Oh,
believe it
really?
or not. Okay. But I bought that. What I couldn't figure out was that little sister, she, I think, is supposed to be from another planet, yet she sticks around. Now, I don't get that, and I must say, I think I had the same frustration you had in this picture. I'm 35 years old. I can't figure out what's going on. How is a 9-year-old?
How is a 9 or a 12-year-old going to? And as far as all during the film, it seemed as if the missing girl, I don't want to give away too much, was in another dimension of time.
Yes, exactly.
Then she went to another planet or something.
What was missing was an important special effects sequence dubbed The Other World. Jan and the Watcher was supposed to fly over strange landscapes until they arrive at the Watcher's crashed spaceship. They go inside, and Jan finds the missing Karen trapped in a triangular prism. She goes in to get her, this act releases Karen, and they both travel back so the Watcher can go home. In a booklet designed for the Anchor Bay DVD release, there are some interviews and trivia notes that elaborate further on the purpose of the Watcher being a creature that is responsible for carrying souls to the next dimension. By accident, it captures Karen's body and soul, resulting in her to be stuck in suspended animation until someone intrusive enough will be able to get her out. The designs of these scenes were made way late into production, so much that extra time was needed to perfect the look of this sequence. Peter Ellenshaw worked on the concept art for this Otherworld sequence, and that says a lot given the bulk of movies he worked on with Disney before. Too many to count. Trust me. Even Sam Nicholson, who did the kinetic light effects for Star Trek The Motion Picture, was brought on for some miniature shots. As mentioned, this scene was never completed, but oddly the people who worked on this particular section were still credited for it, and even appear in the original 1980 sneak peek preview. Wow, talk about a major snafu right there.
I don't know. Now, the end credits of the movie say, ending directed by so-and-so, which means it was directed by a different person than whoever directed the rest of the movie. Maybe they tried to patch it up and still didn't succeed.
I will admit, watching this material first time around, I didn't quite pick up on the feeling of this sequence being incomplete, but it wasn't until extra research into it I discovered that some of the effects in this here were placements for later finely retooled things. And if that's the case, it had me fooled. And even then, it does make me wonder if the original backgrounds, templates, and certain things still exist to at least try and finish it up. But if they only went as far as they could to present a template for what could have been, well, we're kind of stuck with it. According to director John Huff, he was more disappointed in the special effects and blames that for being why the first preview didn't do well. He felt the alien didn't have the fluidity of movement he hoped for and felt it was too jerky in execution. Supposedly, he claims to have had a hand in designing the being in the other world, but he didn't get involved in the special effects department as he was working on another film, or had the chance to work with them. He even went as far to claim in the audio commentary there were other designs of the other realm that looked outstanding and better than the placeholder temporary version seen here. Instead of finishing the ending and fine-tuning it, they decided to film a new one. And out of all the 150 suggestions they had, this is the one they went with. They took a break, went back, refilmed it, and this is what audiences saw in 1981, and this is the version people have seen since then. This one was directed by Vincent McEvity, who worked on some Disney flicks, but probably of lesser quality, which explains the cheapened execution in the climax here. Now, Ellie is possessed by the Watcher entity and explains in terrible exposition what happened.
We exchanged places by mistake. Magnetic pull of the eclipse transferred our positions. Now exchange places again.
Karen's friends try to make the circle of the seance work to bring the Watcher out, depicted here as a pillar of light. The light passes over, Jan's new friend Mike chases in to break the circle before the Watcher takes Jan, and once the eclipse concludes, this apparently brings Karen back. Elwood appears in the chapel, the two are reunited, and movie ends. No refunds. I hate this ending. Really, really hate this ending. I have no shame in saying it. The way everything just wraps up so quick, the shoddiness of the special effects, the cramming of exposition to furiously spoon-feed at the audience and hope they accept it. I really can't stand it. It unravels all the mystery, all the goodness for someone to come out and say, oh, it's all this and so and so and so. By the way, here's Missing Girl. Bye! And to have it all topped up with a really bad special effect that looks like someone just spilled coffee on a nice white marble table and then played with it with a straw. Man, I remember seeing this first time around and I can't tell you how furious, annoyed, and frustrated I was to see it all get resolved in a quick few, compared to the later, more interesting, but yet slightly flawed explanations. And the fact they had all that thinking and went with this one? Blow me. Even more eyebrow-raising is in the other endings, some stuff was fleshed out more. Originally, Elwood wanted Jan not to do the seance out of fear it would be considered witchcraft.
No! You mustn't do that. That is witchcraft. Whatever happened to my Karen could happen to you.
In this new edit, key pieces of dialogue are gone, downplaying the supernatural element more, which is kind of strange given it builds into whether or not the Watcher is a good entity or a bad entity.
Oh, no! You mustn't do that. Whatever happened to my Karen could happen to you.
Jan's mother's given way more to do in the other ending when she finds out what Jan is concocting. She runs down to the church and is upset to see her daughter gone. And to see her when Jan comes back with Karen feels rewarding in a way. Instead, the new ending just makes her character disappear, which is really annoying. There's no other way to put it. I can't elaborate enough on how I can't stand this god-awful conclusion. It's not a case like Little Shop of Horrors where I can live with either the ending where people live or die. This is a case where studio interference really hurt the potential of what could have been a very unique suspense thriller of its time, especially one coming from the House of Mouse.
When you build up suspense, you do want a payoff, especially a young audience wants a payoff, and this film leaves people totally mystified, except that it's more violent than most Disney pictures. I think Disney's trying to get current and with it, and they throw in a lot of extra violence that's needless.
Maybe they should just remember their gift of being able to end a movie well, which they used to be able to do.
Okay.
With this new version, the reviews did get better, but Watcher still flopped at the box office. It was swept under the rug and nearly forgotten outside of gaining a small cult following through home video. The story of The Watcher in the Woods could have ended there. I could have said it has something of a cult following, people have discovered it in home video, but oh no, it doesn't end there. The troubles only began. Cut to a couple of years later when DVD was on the rise, and out came a little studio called Anchor Bay Entertainment. They were getting some backlog titles from Disney and giving them the works. All the little bells and whistles, at least as much as they could gather. They were the Shout Factory or Error Video of their day, trying to give collectors a run for their money. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have seen the original cut of Army of Darkness with the original ending. They were more savvy compared to Disney by adding on some unique extras and things to make the home viewing experience unique. They truly were ahead of their time. Scott Michael Bosco got involved by unearthing the original film elements for Watcher in the Woods, along with TV spots and additional footage. The plan was to construct a version of the movie with the director's original intention to finish the ending the way he wanted it. In fact, Even director John Hough himself offered to do the whole thing for no charge. Now that is absolute commitment to your art. Special effects would be finished and key edits made to his taste, like limiting the Watcher's appearance. To have this glorious special edition would be a dream come true for fans of cinema. But Disney put an end to that. And believe it or not, this was not because of Watcher, but a different title Anchor Bay gave special treatment to: The Happiest Millionaire. Apparently Anchor Bay took the liberty to release both the shorter general release cut and the longer roadshow edition. This was bold given not many people ever saw Happiest Millionaire in its original form. It was a neat idea, but not to Disney. As it turns out, Michael Eisner, who was the head of the studio at the time, didn't know about their contract deal to release some of their backlog films. He literally only knew about this thanks to an article in the LA Times applauding Anchor Bay's efforts on restoring Walt Disney's last musical he produced. Yeah, Eisner was not happy hearing how a smaller studio was handling a movie Walt produced and give it better treatment compared to what they were doing with it. As a result, Disney fired back and halted production over Anchor Bay's treatment of Watcher in the Woods. This all stemmed from the embarrassment of how Anchor Bay released Happiest Millionaire with pure care. The contract stated they had the right to release the movie, but not a particular version. Even more headache-inducing was Disney said Anchor Bay had no right to an extended or altered version of Watcher, as this other cut they were planning to make was not released theatrically in its first run. Even if Happiest Millionaire had a roadshow premiere, it was proven the first cut of Watcher had a small sneak preview run in New York before getting retooled for its 1981 release. Thus, an ultimatum was made. Disney offered to let them do their special release of Watcher in the Woods on the condition that Anchor Bay handed back to them the licensing rights to Happiest Millionaire. Anchor Bay stuck to their guns, and they said no. They were focused on caring for the consumer and didn't want to sacrifice that good integrity for the hard work they made towards that movie. Eventually an agreement was reached after much fighting and endless negotiations to get Watcher in the Woods released. However, there would be only one cut of the movie on there, and it would be the 1981 re-edited version. No director's cut, and the altered endings would be presented as a supplement. And while I'm thankful we got to hear John Huff's thoughts on the film and others through the booklet, it feels bothersome to see a movie's own studio chicken out again. But even more interesting is how we were originally going to see the original opening main title sequence as a supplement on this DVD release. Not added to the film like originally planned, but at least seen for the first time. And it would have been possible if one Disney executive didn't shoot that down, deeming it against the morale of what the company represented. So, believe me when I say, I was absolutely in sheer surprise to see this particular thing included on the Disney Movie Club Blu-ray release. Yeah, you remember the Disney Movie Club, specially designed just for physical media collectors, even though most of the releases were bare bones? Well, the moment I heard that this lost material surfaced, I just had to see for myself if it was on there. And wow. All I can say is, Christmas really came early here. The opening in question relies on a girl going into the woods to play with her doll. Like, that's pretty common compared to today. We then see a POV shot of the Watcher moving close by. The whole event is seen from his view as the creature scares the girl away, picks up the doll, zaps some lasers at it, and the rest of the opening credits play over the doll's melting face. Holy mackerel. To finally see this footage after hearing about it and being teased about it for so long is interesting. It clearly sets up the dark tone of the movie better, and it catches you off guard. Of course, this would be replaced in the current version with shots of trees. Riveting.
What kind of fantastic trees have you got growing around here? Big, majestic.
Douglas firs.
Douglas firs. Can someone get me a copy of the coroner's report on the dead girl?
I don't know what else to say. At this point, it's practically pick your poison. But even then, I'm still miffed over the fact that somebody over there actually looked at this particular material and said, we'll just slap it on this. It's going to a movie club that few people are probably part of. It's not like anyone's going to see it. They're not going to go out of the way to shell out tons of money just for this right here. There's no way this thing will surface. Hello? Have you suckers ever heard of eBay? This is practically going for at least somewhere between $50 to $100, and I got lucky given how far this and so many other titles go for. I just don't believe it. They were sitting on this stuff, and someone just decided to slap it on there with the aspect that maybe, just maybe, there won't be enough hoopla or Bollywood going over the fact that an extra that they've been holding back for so long finally made its way out into the public. They just didn't care. And if I can be honest, this is something of the studio that I respect the least. We are talking about a movie studio way back in the 1950s when they were working on 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and they stopped production just to save a big special effects sequence that was going to tank. And it moved on to become one of the most well-known things of that particular film. Yeah, remember the giant squid sequence? It was so poorly done, they literally halted production to find a new way to fix up and make it look good, and it worked. It's one of the biggest landmark scenes in all of cinema history. The way I see it, they had two options. One, go back and actually fix the film proper to its original intention. Or two, cook up an ending that was more interesting, unique, or at least match the tone of the movie in general. Instead, what do? They chickened out and decided to just send it out there with a couple of band-aids and say, this is the final product. This is the theatrical cut. Accept it for what it is. When in actuality, it was incomplete. And so what did? They went to option number 2, but they were way too late. And they made not just a bad ending, but a band-aid. A band-aid that didn't service or help anyone. And now, here you are, with a small fry of a company that is basically saying to you, look, we want to do right. We want to fix this thing. We want to actually do it proper. We're going to go back, fix it up, and actually show it the way it was going to be intended. Hell, director John Huff, according to Scott Michael Bosco, went out of his way to say, I'll do it for gracias, no payment, no free, because I want to see my art perfect as it was. And said, what did Disney do? Just out of pride, sheer absolute pride, they said, no, absolutely not. You were given an option, a chance to actually fix this thing. Hell, Blade Runner, love it or hate it, they actually financed, or someone at least financed, a cut of the film that had corrections, fixed up some problems here and there, and just made it closer to Ridley Scott's original vision. Love it or hate it, they actually took the time and effort to say, yes, we will go back and actually fix this up. Hell, Alien 3 wasn't well received back then, but did that stop 20th Century Fox from fixing up again? No. When it came to the Alien anthology, they gave it the exact care and treatment that they did with all the others. It didn't matter because it was part of a legacy of a franchise that mattered to many. They cared for the consumer. And now, I look at this and think to myself, they had a chance. They had a shot to go back and do it right. And they didn't. It could have been something beautiful, something great. Could it have redeemed the whole thing? Maybe, I don't know. Because they chickened out. They just basically said, look, our company is not like that. We're just going to leave this out to dry and have it be as it is. A compromise we made back then that doesn't work or satisfy for everyone's taste. Because we don't care. But you know what? We do. There are people out there that are doing fan edits and cuts to see what this would look if it went in this direction or that direction. There is someone advocating for a cut of Superman 4 to improve the effects and all that kind of stuff because they want to see what it would look like if it was actually finally, properly ironed out and given effects. My point is this. What is so unique about this movie that makes you feel so embarrassed by it? Why? of all the films in your library, you look under this one and see it as the ugly stepchild you want to kick around. You were given so many chances, so many shots to greatly improve upon it and do something better. But no, you lost your chance. And this is what we are stuck with. And before any egghead points us out in the comments, yes! This is newly shot material that I decided to do on the fly because the original rant I had planned was not strong enough. Because you know why? That is how much I care about movies! Now, back to footage of me that was filmed 1 week before this. Unless someone like you cares a whole lot, nothing's gonna get better. It's not. Going back to the movie, I still say it's worth seeing, but don't expect much out of it. If you know about the production problems and what went on before and after, you'll be okay. You'll pretty much be aware that this is a flawed product that is unfinished, but still has a lot of good things that keep you coming back to it. I feel it's a case where the studio treatment over it is far more fascinating. Why does Disney hate this movie? Are they that embarrassed when so many other annoying duds came before and after Watching the Woods? The Black Cauldron got better treatment over time, so why is this one considered the ugly stepchild they toss around and beat the snot out of? It's well directed, the acting is not too bad, the premise has promise, but it's all undone by that conclusion. The fact they never could concoct an ending that could satisfy anyone or anybody, or even one that was consistent to the tone it was building up to. For a movie that really had its time perfecting how to be engaging, it did the job well, until the final reveal. Look, I don't hate this movie. I don't love it, but I do admire some things about it, enough to give it an actual recommendation. What bugs me the most is that we could have gotten something really good here if they stuck with the original plan and actually fully finished the film. Instead, what we got is another unfinished symphony of a movie. While it's not completely a mess, like, say, Ralph Bakshi's Lord of the Rings, where it was left unfinished, it still feels unfinished just by those final 5 minutes alone. And to see someone just slapdash the conclusion together and said, this is the ending, doesn't feel like so. Until something is properly done, we're stuck with this. For better or for worse. I hope you understand that nothing against you, it's just the way this movie's been treated really does irk me. Okay, look, if this is the case where the whole universe is in peril because of my opinion, I'm really sorry. Like I said, I have nothing against you or this, it's just the studio botched it all up and...
I know. That's why I convinced you to cover this one.
Convince? Wait. It was you that left those copies of The Watcher in the Woods, didn't ya?
Yes, and now that you've covered it proper, I can finally go home. But first... Nothing personal, but I thought your opinion on Holly Lynn Johnson was too cold.
Talk about Pluto balls. This is my legacy to the world. Aliens. I rest. See you in the next upload.
Nothing personal, but I thought your opinion on Holly... Whoops, I got the name wrong. This is what happens when you're an alien trying to read lines on a human computer screen.
Something approaches in darkness while everyone sleeps, then steals their souls. Tonight, it wants 2 boys and 1 father.
You're lost!
Disguised as a carnival of delights, it fools everyone except 3 people, 2 small but very free spirits, and the man it thinks is too old to help them.
Dad, they're after us.
And now, it won't leave without them.
I merely wish to give them the valuable rewards that they so richly deserve.
In Ray Bradbury's masterpiece of imagination and suspense, Something Wicked This Way Comes, starring Jason Robards.
I know who you are.
And Jonathan Pryce.
Tell me where the boys are hiding, and I can make you young again.
Something Wicked This Way Comes.
Arrives Friday, April 29th at theaters everywhere.
Cut.
Dad, get away!
What do aliens have to do with Halloween?
Silence!